This was the NDA government's last budget before obviously the next elections, and therefore the budget had a focus on an area for which the government has been facing criticism, which is the rural area. The government seems to be on target in terms of meeting the fiscal deficit target or the roadmap they have put out, though there was a slight slippage in that. But because of the higher proceeds coming in from disinvestment, the government has been able to, in a way, move on that path. Also, if you look at it, this was the first budget after the goods and services tax were introduced. So this was for 11 months of GST revenues coming in. The government obviously therefore did not have as much revenue as it was expecting, but it expects the situation to get better in the coming fiscal. It also expects growth to be back on track and to grow at above 7%, nearly about 8%. So how will the government go about achieving this growth? A lot of the focus will be on rural areas. So the basic idea is to increase rural incomes. The government is looking at increasing the minimum support price to almost 1.5 times the cost of production for most of the farm produce. So that is the biggest target. Then the government is looking at bringing in more credit for farmers, more credit into rural areas. Then a huge amount of investment in what the government is calling ease of living, which is basically increasing health centers, increasing education centers, and also improving infrastructure. Interestingly, if you look at it, this since last year, obviously the railway budget has been subsumed in the main budget. So there was some reference to the railways about how more track renewals are going to happen, stations are going to be expanded. The budget speech also mentioning the Udan scheme, which has been launched for the airlines, and talking about the fact on how it has really been an encouraging response from most airlines, and how the number of airports is actually going to go up 5-fold. That will be a huge jump in airline or airport infrastructure. Then obviously the government also talking about roads and how they would be, in a way meeting the target of about 9,000 kilometers of new roads, and they are saying that more and more investment will go into these. Obviously the other big challenge which has been there before the government is about job creation. So government talking about how they will increase investments in Digital India, how they will be looking at bringing in new research, new studies into artificial intelligence, robotics, because these are new areas which the government feels will lead to job creation. Also on the social security net, bringing in certain new measures, for example, paying the provident fund for new joining employees for about 3 years. Not too much for corporate India and for the urban population, though obviously the micro and the small enterprises get corporate tax relief for companies with revenues up to 250 crores. The tax rate has been brought down to 25%. That's a big relief. But at the same time, for other corporates and obviously for people investing in the stock markets, the government has brought back the long-term capital gains tax. This tax was not there. So this has been a letdown for the stock market. Therefore, there was adverse reaction in the stock market on that. Some amount of relief for the salaried taxpayer as well. The standard deduction rate has been, in a way brought to 40,000 rupees. Though it will be in lieu of the benefits which were given earlier for medical as well as for travel expenses, but still it's increase in the benefit which is now coming into salaried people. Some amount of movement for senior citizens as well. The exemption on interest income earned by them going up, and also on the money they are spending on health insurance, they will get benefits on that. So if you look at it, in a way, a little bit of something for everybody, but a huge focus on the rural areas, also on job creation, and basically in a way telling the people that we are there. So for example, I will just like to add before I end this, that one of the focus areas for, if you look at the poorer segment of society, is a new health scheme which is being brought in. Almost 10 crore families, poor families, will get a 5 lakh health coverage every year from the government. So these are some of the schemes which the government hopes will be the winning ticket for them in the next election.